All right, Kyle Brandt, I asked you for a bunch of suggestions for movies we could do because normally, you know, I think we're known as a combo for hitting the action movies, hitting the 80s, hitting the 90s, to the point that when I watch bad action movies from the 80s or 90s or mediocre action movies or lovably bad action movies, I think of you and whether we could do a pod about it together. You suggested The Naked Gun. Yeah. And I was like, it's a little bit of a zag for us. Mm-hmm. And yet, a movie that I love very, very much, and you might even love it more than me. So why'd you suggest this?
It's a huge zag for us, Bill. This is going to test us today. There's a lot of people excited for this, but it's not for you, and it's not for me. Weird Al Yankovic is on the pod today, guys. It's going to be great. I chose this, Bill, because let me tell you a story. A couple of years ago, I was golfing with 3 friends. We got paired up with this random guy. Didn't know him. He was kind of weird, kind of annoying. I don't know if he was all there. Kept talking to us about weird stuff and books and movies. At one point, in like the 16th hole, he goes, I want to test you guys right now. The Great Gatsby, the great American novel. How many pages does it have in it? And I go, I don't know, dude, 300. My buddy says 350, 250. Guy goes, you're all wrong. Great Gatsby is 180 pages of perfection. And my take is that The Naked Gun is 80 minutes of perfection. It is tight. And to go with the baseball theme, I think this movie flirts with the perfect movie. I don't have a lot of problems with it. And that's why I said it's going to test Rewatchables, Bill. How are we going to do Naked Gun for like Weak Link and Butch's Girlfriend? How are we going to pick nits with The Naked Gun? It's a movie of nits. I'm sure you got them and I got them too, but it's like, we're here to just fuck around and be funny. And we do it for 80 minutes.
I gotta say, when I was trying to do the most rewatchable scene, I was just writing down every scene. And I was like, wait, I just can't, it can't just be every scene in the movie. So I tried to narrow it down to like 7. But I mean, I grew up with Airplane. Yep. It was one of the first comedies that I saw like in the theater that really got me. And that was 1980. And it's the DNA of these guys, Zucker, Abrahams, the other Zucker. Yep. Pat Proft helped with the writing, but this was like this weird spoof era that felt like the biggest thing in the world for comedies in the 80s. And now I think it got ripped off and just watered down and diluted. And there were so many bad versions of it that people now stay away from it, which makes the old stuff even better.
I know.
And I don't know whether I'm just old and this stuff just hits me, but it's just like, I love that they never give up on going for it. Mm-hmm. It's like, is that joke sitting there? Let's grab it. Like the best example of that is when he opens the drawer and he's like, bingo, and pulls out the bingo card. Bingo card. So stupid.
I know. Well, you and I talked before this, and like, let's just pull back the curtain. You said that you were really interested in Craig's review. And I said, I'm nervous for it because this movie is special to me. And I'm worried, Bill, that people, either young people now or just people just seeing it are like, this is fucking stupid. It's not funny. It's dumb. They go to the water and there's a chalk outline floating on the water. I'm supposed to think that's funny. And I do think it's funny. And I think we're going to have that battle here today. If Craig comes on here and says it's not funny, we'll get to it, Craig. But like, I respect you. I hope it doesn't go that way.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about that. So these guys, the Zucker crew, they did Airplane.
Yep.
They made Naked Gun from the files of Police Squad, which I'm proud to say. And I know people can think like, oh, he's full of shit. He didn't see the first season of Seinfeld when it was 4 episodes, all that shit. But I really did. I was an only child. I watched a lot of TV. I really did see a lot of these.
You watched that show?
The Police Squad series, which was only like 6 episodes. But I remember I had no idea if other people were watching it. I didn't have a lot of people to talk about. It wasn't like I could go on Reddit boards and see, oh, is anyone else watching Naked Gun? And I remember he got nominated for Best Actor for a comedy series in the Emmys. And I was like, wait, other people saw it? Like, I just had no idea. It lasted 6 episodes and it got canceled. So I thought that meant it was a failure. But a lot of the DNA from the movie is in the TV show. I mean, they openly steal scenes from it.
Apparently, it's just direct jokes, like you're saying. I remember as a kid and even growing up, I didn't know what the hell the second part of the title meant from the files of Police Squad. Like that meant nothing to me, but the titles were so silly. I just thought it was some joke I didn't get. Apparently, as it goes, like they always wanted to make a movie. They couldn't come up with it. So they handed a TV show 6 episodes and then like canceled after 4. And yet it still spawned this trilogy really that we're going to get to. And I just think I also think like, I think it's important we set the table. Like I saw this, you were saying you grew up with Airplane. Like I saw this at a birthday party, a 9th birthday party, like 12 9-year-olds in the theater together. just hopped up on like ices and popcorn and just laughing until we fell on the floor. We thought it was so funny, like the dumb stuff, the dick stuff. But what I didn't get, Bill, is that I get now is like, this is also one of the strangest casts ever assembled, like ever. And I mean, it's really strange. I know we'll get into it. The top to bottom is like, this movie has Elvis Presley's wife, Tony Soprano's mom, an Oscar winner, the Fantasy Island guy, a baseball legend playing a killer, a football legend who became an actual killer, and then we have a 62-year-old man who's been in Hollywood 40 years, and this is like his first leading movie star role. That's the cast. It's batshit.
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen, who I felt like I grew up with in the 70s because he was on every TV show.
Talk about this. I don't know this.
I mean, here's how you know if somebody was really in the rotation. Okay. Look how many Love Boat and Fantasy Islands they were in. It's not just a onesie. They come back like a year later. He was in 3 different Love Boat episodes and 3 different Fantasy Island episodes. And you go through his IMDb and it's all the hits. It's Kojak, it's Beretta, it's Vegas. You know, he's just hitting all of them. And that's who he was. It was a little like what Jeffrey Tambor was like, where Jeffrey Tambor was, you know, was in Three's Company in 4 different ways and then finally ended up getting the Ropers. But
so we think that him and like Ricardo Montalbán were probably buddies, right? Like they'd been on Fantasy Island a bunch of times already together, right? So they were probably old friends. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because he was on the 3 different Fantasy Islands. So he shows up in Airplane. Yeah. And one of the gimmicks of him showing up in Airplane was it was like, oh, it's that guy, but now he's funny. And I guess he had been in some other comedies, but he's so good in Airplane. And Airplane is, I don't know, it's the movie that paves the way for Naked Gun, which I think has lasted. Would you say it's lasted better? Airplane feels pretty dated. It's a parody of 1940s movies in 1980, which now is 44 years ago.
100%. I think Airplane is the godfather like of this genre. It's legendary. It's more well known. I think The Naked Gun is way better. And we're going to talk about what's aged the best. Like I put on Airplane, I feel like I'm watching a movie in 1932. I can't believe how old it looks. And I think that's some of it because they're on a plane the whole time and the plane's just so old fashioned. This movie, you turn on Naked Gun, I'm like, I don't know, 2005. Like I don't miss the cell phones. It's just them in LA at a baseball game and like just solving crimes. I think it holds up well.
Yeah, it's a good point. Because Airplane, even though it has really funny individual scenes, like the 2 kids that act like adults kills me. Oh yeah. The lady who freaks out and there's a lineup to basically slap her and it's like so politically incorrect.
And none does
hilarious. Yeah, there's just and they go down the line. Somebody's holding nunchucks.
Well, Mrs. Cleaver saying, "Excuse me, stewardess, I speak jive." I mean, it's unbelievable.
Right, but that's stuff that in 2024, it wouldn't be a big deal that's Mrs. Cleaver. But in 1980, it was like, oh my God, they got Mrs. Cleaver. This one added, but so anyway, the Zucker Gang, they did this. They did Top Secret in 84. Yep. They did Ruthless People. They did the scary movies. Like they had incredible careers, but I think this was the apex. I'm proud to say I saw this in the theater. I think I saw it with my buddy Gus. I'm not positive, but I'm 95% positive. Gus would remember. Okay. Absolute hardest I've ever laughed in a theater.
This is your number 1.
This is 1A, and There's Something About Mary is 1B for hardest. And not just hardest I laughed, but the theater just dying. And the thing that actually pushed it over the top for me was the baseball, the montage of the scoreboard when the guy's head came off, that and the guy getting eaten by the lion at second base. Like that was it. I was like keeled over. I was keeled over. That finished me off. But I think this was number 1. What's your number 1? Because it couldn't have been this because you were 9.
No, it didn't count. But listen, we're eye to eye. Summer 1998. I go to see this Farrelly Brothers movie. There's Something About Mary, and I love Dumb and Dumber. I love Kingpin. And my number 1 hardest laugh came about 10 minutes into the movie when we see Ben Stiller's nuts up the zipper. I can't believe they showed it. What's crazy though is I laughed so hard. That reign as my hardest theater laugh ever lasted about a half an hour. And then it was dethroned by when he has the load on his ear. And I actually fell out of my chair at 18 years old onto the floor. And that to this day, my hardest 2 laughs ever are both There's Something About Mary. Amazing.
I think I went back for seconds for Naked Gun because the first time everyone in the theater was laughing. So you missed half the jokes. And then we went back again when there was less people. But then what really, and this goes back to the theme of the podcast. Once this hit the cable rotation.
Yep.
Probably, I don't know, 6, 8, 9 months. It also was in the Blockbuster rental area too, which was great. But once it hit that cable rotation, then you could just jump in. Yeah, whatever. Whether it's TNT, whether it's HBO, wherever, you could just jump into different parts, and it was like, oh, he's about to assault the umpire and take the umpire gear away. Great, I'm in. And that's what the legacy of this was. Other than what you mentioned at the top, it's 85 minutes start to finish, including all the credits.
Right.
And Craig always talks about this. Like, what happened to the 90-minute movie? What happened to the let's get in and out? Now, if they made it, this would be 2 hours.
And I've been listening a lot to a lot of rewatchables, and I know what's the state with movies right now. And Fennessy was on a tirade about why does Fall Guy have to cost that much money? Why is it so expensive? And your usual bedrock is why is it so long? So I'm looking at this Furiosa. You know, it's 2.5 hours. These like Planet of the Apes movies are fucking 2.5 hours. And I just don't know why someone doesn't bang that fist on the table and say, enough, cut 20 minutes out of it. Too long. And I look at Naked Gun, breezes by an effortless sub-hour and a half, and I just love it for it. You can watch it twice.
Yeah, we used to have a category that I took out about when best time to take a pee break.
Is that gone?
The Anchorman flu category. Yeah, I kind of took it out because you could basically put that on what stage the worst. There's no pee break in this movie. There's no part. Like you could say, maybe you could race out when Ricardo Montalbán's talking to Priscilla Presley.
That's it.
For it's like a minute of, they probably could have cut this. That's it. That's the only scene.
Bill, I looked at this when I watched. The longest stretch they go in the whole movie without any kind of joke or gag is that scene when he tells her, I want you to get to know Frank Drebin. And it's a 60-second scene with no jokes. You could take a really quick piss, but that's the longest you're getting, 60 seconds. So good.
Leslie Nielsen, top 10 Canadian for you?
He's up there. Yeah. Oh, top 10, definitely. I think you got to put Jim Carrey ahead of him. I think you got to put John Candy ahead of him.
Lorne Michaels?
Yeah. I more prefer the artists. Dan Aykroyd's up
look
there.
At you. You're artist friendly, Kyle Britt.
Yeah. Come on. What are we talking about here, Bill? I'm not a magnet. I'm a talent. I'm going with the talent. Never mind Lorne Michaels.
Gretzky?
Gretzky, sure. Mike Myers, yes. Bryan Adams, yes. Rachel McAdams, yeah.
How about the hitman, Bret Hart?
Bret Hart's one. I forgot. Excellence of execution. Bret Hart's number one.
The Anvil, Jim Neidhart. Anyway, Canadian. I think he got American citizenry at some point. Roger Ebert called him the Laurence Olivier of spoofs.
Awesome.
That was a thing. So there's this weird Leslie Nielsen part when Naked Gun comes out.
Go on.
And he has unanimous approval rating, right? And then in the 90s, he just starts cranking out spoof comedies and he becomes the king of spoof. And we get Naked Gun 2.5, which isn't bad.
Big hit. Way more money than the first. It's okay. It works.
It's fine. It works. It's not as good as Naked Gun 1. Then Naked 33.5 is really bad.
33 and a third.
33 and a third has the ignominy of coming out like 2 months before OJ's wife died.
Close. Really close. They went for it in the 33 and a third. They go for the big final set piece like they do with the baseball game, except they do the Oscars. And it just doesn't work. And they make a lot of bad Phil Donahue jokes. It falls flat in the final act.
It's bad. It's very pop culture centric in a way that has not aged well at all. He also did Repossessed, which was an Exorcist spoof. He did 2001: A Space Travesty. He did Dracula, Dead and Loving It. He did Spy Hard and Wrongfully Accused, which were Die Hard and Fugitive Things. I would call this the bad Blockbuster era for Leslie because you would go to the new rentals in Blockbuster and there would be a video cassette and it would be Leslie Nielsen making some funny face with some bad gimmick. I choose to basically not think about that stuff. A lot like, when the great 80s or 90s wrestlers, when then they have like the next 10, 12 years where they're in like TNA and it's like, you know what, that never happened.
Willie Mays stumbling around the outfield for the Mets.
Right. Like in the 73 series.
Here's the test, Bill. Like, all right, so he made a movie that's an entire spoof of The Fugitive. Like, nobody likes The Fugitive more than you and I. I've never seen that movie. I've never thought about seeing that movie. I've never seen any of those. He also did Mr. Magoo, which I think is just like awful. He just tried. He kept putting up shots and like they didn't connect again.
He did a golf thing. Yeah. He created some golf character that I don't know, it was like a parody thing, but it didn't really work. But
Drebin is great though.
Regardless, he lives on forever with Airplane and with Fantasy Island. Ricardo Montalbán.
Let's go.
Who had a bad guy run of Fantasy Island, which I want to talk about in a second, because you don't think of him as a bad guy in Fantasy Island. Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, one of the great performances.
Yes.
Pauline Kael talked about how great he was in Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan.
He's unbelievable.
How good he was.
There's people who have hot takes that like Khan is better than like Darth Vader. Like people love Khan, love him.
Which also got the resurgence when David Kahn took over the Timberwolves and took Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio over Steph Curry, leading to me just doing Khan in like 2 years of columns.
Also, Shad Khan hired Urban Meyer to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That went well. There was not a lot of wraths of Khan after that wrath.
And Tony Khan running AEW.
That's right.
Trying to compete in WWE. So Fantasy Island, because he plays two great bad guys in the 80s, Khan and Vincent Ludwig.
Yeah.
Fantasy Island, he's allegedly a good guy, but he wasn't. And this is one of the reasons I love Fantasy Island. And now I'm really dating myself because nobody under 40.
No, Bill, you're cooking. Go.
This is a huge, important show. Mr. Work was dark, man. He had a dark side to him, and there would be moments when somebody was like, I didn't realize my fantasy was going to go badly like this. And Mr. Work would get in their business and be like, nope, you chose this fantasy. Now you have to finish it. And it was just like, he was sinister, man. He was a little bit of the dark arts. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the Epstein Island logs, honestly. I could see maybe he went back 20, 30 times, but I never trusted Mr. Work, but I think it was because of Montalbán, because he was just so, and he had that crazy, some people just had great evil rugs. His toque, like just that kind of, you just know it's not his real hair, but it's so impressive. You just kind of want to stare at it. As the TVs get better, you can just phase in on his rug for 10 minutes. See,
this is now I'm getting to know you so well on the show, Bill. You wanted to do Naked Guns. You could talk about Montalbán's hair in the fantasy. That's the only.
And his creepiness.
You know how sometimes you'll say to fantasy, like, hey, you want to take 30 seconds to talk about this DP, this director of photography? Bill, do you want to take 30 seconds to talk about tattoo? Do you want to take 30 minutes? Let's go. Talk about the plane. That's all I know from that show.
I might have been on a text thread about tattoo a couple weeks ago.
Didn't end well. I'll
tell you this. One of the great 10-minute Google deep dives you'll ever do.
Yeah, I mean,
tattoo was like, he had the Dirk Digger and from 1980 on in Boogie Nights run, Hervé Villachez in real life. Like just insane. Cocaine, womanizing, like domestic abuse, like car accidents, like, but like almost like he was like the lead singer of the Allman Brothers. And meanwhile, he was like 2.5 feet tall and then leaves Fantasy Island at like all-time heat check.
He walked away.
This show's too small for me. I've got to tattoo it up. And then was never seen again.
So he did like leaving Cheers, like Shelley in the middle of the run.
He's like him, Gary Berghoff from MASH, and Shelley Long and Cheers were the big three.
Wow.
The what are you doings?
Wow.
You don't realize how good you've had it. I mean, they turned out to be cautionary tales.
For any of our young friends listening, want to know about tattoo. Once you get to the death chapter of his Wikipedia, it's absolutely horrible. But he lived a hell of a life, huh, Bill? Jesus.
Not only did he live a hell of a life, HBO TV movie, which I highly recommend, Peter Dinklage playing Tattoo.
He took the character away from the island?
Yeah. They did a whole tattoo, like real life. Here's how fucked up his life was. Yeah. Tattoo. Anyway, Montalbán.
Wow.
Just great stuff. And he's really good as Vincent Ludwig. And I think one of the keys with this movie is they tried to get real actors and basically implored them. And the Zuckers, they've talked about this. Like, don't try to be funny. Just act this like it's like, just play this like it's a real movie, even though it's not. And I think that's one of the secret sauces. Now I always feel like people are trying to be funny as they're doing it.
Yeah. It's like when she says, can I interest you in a nightcap? Leslie Nielsen just, no, thank you. I don't wear them. There's no shtick. He's not chewing up scenery at all. He's just playing it straight. Like if that works so well and you just, all right, we're going to take really serious actors and put them in a ridiculous movie. You wonder why it didn't work more. Like it just, I haven't seen that copied that many times. Maybe it's a dead form like we were talking about. If they did that much box office, why didn't someone rip that off better?
Well, I mean, certainly enough people tried to rip it off. I would say this is one of the most ripped off genres. And the Scary Movie franchise, I think, did succeed. I was never a huge fan. I liked the first one. But for the most part, this movie had a $12 million budget. It made $154 million.
Astronomical.
It was the 8th biggest movie of 1988 and spawned 2 sequels. And our guy, Roger Ebert, did you look this up?
I did. Go on.
3.5 stars from Raj.
Fucking awesome.
You go, Raj. This is the summer of Raj.
Quote. Yes.
He said, the movie is as funny, let it be said, as any comedy released this year with the exception of A Fish Called Wanda. By the way, I'll take The Naked Gun over A Fish Called Wanda.
Definitely. I like Wanda, but this is better.
Yeah. You laugh and then you laugh at yourself for laughing. The Naked Gun is an utterly goofy movie and a lot of fun. Great job, Raj.
That's the line.
Fucking
you
nailed
laugh
it.
and laugh at yourself for laughing. I was doing that last night. Like when he walks in and Montalbán's like, Cuban? And he goes, no, Dutch Irish. My father was from Wales. Like, I laughed. I sat there giggling for the whole movie. And then I'm like, why did I laugh at that? It's so dumb, but I love it.
Yeah.
He's right.
They just embraced the dumb. Most rewatchable scene. So again, I had to make some cuts.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Nordberg foiling at the docks. The docks.
Yeah.
He has 8 horrible things happen to him in a row. He's brutally shot by 7 people. He hits his head.
Yep.
He burns his hand. I like the wet paint is just elite.
It's the best one.
Oh no,
no. I just got this jacket.
The window closes on his hand. Then there's a birthday cake. His face hits it.
I think
and then he steps in a bear trap.
Wedding cake or birthday? I'm not even sure which. Like it's multi-tiered and then bear trap and then out. This is really good performing by the Juice. Like you can see how talented he is. Like the physical comedy is perfect. He's an amazing athlete. He's charismatic. I laugh every time he gets the paint on his jacket and is so pissed. And it's a brilliant start to the movie, obviously.
The Juice, we probably could have talked about him at the top, but
I got him in What's Age the Worst. I mean, it's like the all-time. Is there ever been a stronger What's Age the Worst in Rewatchables history than the Juice? I think it's the number one.
Well, you think about him in the 80s where he's on Monday Night Football, he's in commercials, he's in First and 10 on HBO.
Yep.
And then Nordberg really kind of revitalized him because this movie was such a hit and he was really funny in it. And by Naked Gun 33 1/3, the franchise is starting to fade. He's making he was making some like a Baywatch type of show. He's doing a pilot for that. That was where he got the knife. That became part of the trial. But then his wife died in June 94. And then that was it for the Juice.
Yeah. The timeline is when he's shooting this, he is married to Nicole. They have a child. And then to your point, 33 1/3 is still hanging around in theaters when the murders happen. And like, can you just imagine? Like, it was still in some of those theaters, and it's all very dark and terrible. So if you compartmentalize Nordberg, like I remember, like I don't know OJ's football career just from grainy video and stuff, but like when he was in the chase that night, my friend's calling me on our landline in our kitchen. He's like, "Dude, Nordberg's running, fucking Nordberg." That we knew him as Nordberg. That was us.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy. He's one of the best running backs of all time, and you knew him as Nordberg. Who do you think, what football player would Nordberg be now? I could have done this in unanswerable questions, but I'll just do it now.
Adrian Peterson, maybe, like a Hall of Famer, a 2,000-yard rusher. Like, but Adrian Peterson didn't have the charisma. He wasn't in the Hertz commercials.
Did you say Randy Moss?
Randy Moss is close, but also Randy Moss was infamous. Who'd you got, Craig?
Marshawn?
But OJ was much better than Marshawn and much more productive. Like he had a 2,000-yard season in the 70s.
I like the Marshawn call from the personality sense though, because just everyone likes Marshawn.
It's true,
right? So,
and OJ was
it's like Marshawn Lynch crossed with Randy Moss, basically.
He was like, you don't throw this phrase around. Like OJ was almost like a national treasure in the 70s and 80s. He was that big of a deal. So I think Marshawn with like Randy's ability, like that's a good.
Oh,
one.
You know who it is? I got it. It's Barkley. It's if Barkley was Nordberg, Barkley like 10 years ago, but same kind of thing where great career. And then after his career, almost like elevated somehow.
Yeah. Just unbelievably like I was having it later, like who would be the Reggie Jackson? Like, you know, Big Papi had some of that. Like just everybody loves him. Hall of Fame player. It's just so well liked, OJ.
Like Ken Griffey.
Yeah.
Next rewatchable scene, visiting Nordberg in the hospital, which is just incredible. The bed breaks. We get a parachute not opening. That's the way to die. Getting caught in the gears of a combine. That's the way I want to go.
Having your nuts bit off by a Laplander.
The giant booger kills me. I don't know why giant boogers.
Every time.
They land every time, and no matter what movie, the big long one. And then Wilma, I promise you, whatever scum did this, not one man on this force will rest 1 minute until he's behind bars. No, let's grab a bite to eat.
It's fucking great. That's something you say with your friends, like when you're really, let's go get a bite to eat. I love that part.
Next one is Frank peeing with a live mic into Frank negotiating with the guy from Pier 32. I'm going to lump those together, but we both done TV and we both done live TV, and you still do live TV. I don't do it anymore. I think Frank peeing with the live mic is one of the most secretly important scenes in the history for anyone as a learning experience, for anyone about to do TV, because for people who don't know, like, you have this little transmitter on your side, you're mic'd up, and you basically can turn it on or off, and it's just very easy to forget. And maybe you're talking with one of your buddies, you know, somebody you like on the show, and you're like, let's talk about the producer for a second. You go out in the hallway, you're like, fucking asshole. But if your mic's on, the people in the control room can hear everything. They can videotape everything. So it's always in the back of your head. But when I was doing TV, especially like those, you know, the games and stuff, or those studio shows, like, I always thought of Frank Drebin.
Always.
Like, turn the mic off. It's like the first thing you think about it. And it's because of this. Am I crazy or is that true?
No, it's a brilliant take. I feel like every single person who puts one of those packs on the belt thinks about Drebin pissing and shitting and farting and whatever the hell he's doing. I mean, I've had lots of close calls, and I've seen it's what it is like you finish the segment and you're going to clear the set. And as you're walking off, you'll be like, what the fuck was that? And you just say it almost to yourself under your breath, but everyone can hear everything. We've seen it. Like, it's not hard to Google. People have been fired. People have had their lives ruined from hot mic moments. But I do think that Frank Drebin is like the ultimate contraception for if you're ever going to say anything. It's true.
The best part is the peeing is funny and it stops. And Tony Soprano's mom is kind of like, oh, thank God it's over. And then it pees again and dribbles. And then there's another stream. And you're like, this is great. You guys can't top this. And then he does the arms up in the air fart.
He goes with his hands all flexed, and he goes, whoops, uh-oh. And then it's like a double fart. It's so fucking good. And then she just puts her head in her hands.
Yeah.
So is this the funniest pissing scene of all time, or is it the first Austin Powers Evacuation Complete? Because they're really similar scenes. I actually think this one's funnier.
I think Austin Powers.
It's good.
It kind of no, but I'm saying Austin Powers kind of dips into Naked Gun was first. It's got to get the credit for it. Powers is good, but it's basically the Drebin scene again.
It is. And remember, like, that scene opens with one of my favorite lines in the whole thing, when Drebin gets up and says, no matter how silly the idea of having a queen may be to us, we must be honorable hosts. It's fucking great. He starts the whole press conference, and we totally agree. It is silly.
And then it goes right to Pier 32, and they ripped that one off directly from Police Squad. That was one of the famous scenes from the pilot. But giving the $20 back and forth, excellent. I love the gadget guy, Ted Olson, and that's my next rewatchable scene, because it starts with him. First of all, his driving, which I had in What's Age the Best, the gimmick of how bad of a driver he is, which they never, it's just always kind of under the radar the whole time. But he parks, his car rolls down the hill, he starts shooting at it.
Look at the driver.
He kind of realizes it, but then he goes to see gadget guy Ted Olson. We get an anti-graffiti wall, which I'm kind of down for. I thought that was a good idea.
Talk about it. Why don't we have this? Spray the shit out of those people.
That was one of those ideas. It was like a Kevin Wilde's half-baked idea where it's like, that might be fully baked.
It's true.
And then the Swiss Army shoe I thought was great. But then we get Ed getting shot by the cufflink. Watch this. I'll try it on Ed. And he gets shot. Why? And he just falls backwards.
Just one question, Bill, about the Swiss Army shoe. Is it possible that our boy from Roadhouse ripped it off a year later with the right boot, with the knife on the boot? Like, I feel like it flies really close to that. The bladed boot.
They just grabbed
that's the first thing I thought of.
I think you're right. I think you're right. We also meet the giant guy, Al, in this scene, who's also from the Police Squad TV series. But you got something on your mouth. One of the great sight gags, though, because you just never see him. I think for all three movies, you just see him from like the shoulders down. And then the use your other eye, Frank. That's just, the jokes are coming and they're perfect and they're just hitting the whole time. The chase scene with the evil doctor, where we get the teen driving school girl.
Go for it, Stephanie. Great scene.
We get John Houseman in his last movie ever somehow. Tough one for John.
Wait, can you tell me about Houseman? I remember I used to see him and like do guest stars on sitcoms and stuff. He was a guy who was around. You're talking about the driving instructor?
Yeah, he was like a very famous, distinguished actor.
Yeah.
He's great in Rollerball. He was in The Paper Chase. Like he was just like, there was a levity with him. So having him in a movie like this was like a great gag.
And he would drop into like Silver Spoons or Punky Brewster, things like that, right? I feel like I knew that guy other than Naked Gun.
Yeah, that in the last 8-9 years, he might have been leveraging the mystique of John Houseman for some paychecks. But this leads to Feldman Fireworks. Please disperse, nothing to see here, which I think has got to be one of the 20 most used Twitter meme videos, right?
And here's when they use it. When you see Drebin saying nothing to see here, it'll be like, the team announces that the star quarterback is getting a second opinion about his knee, but they remain confident about the prognosis. And then it'll be Drebin, nothing to see here as the fireworks are going. That's when you use it on Twitter.
Yeah, it's eternal. I know your feelings on the falling in love montage, which is our next rewatchable scene.
Let's go.
We get running on the beach, cotton candy and tattoos. Spraying mustard on each other, and then the vendor who thinks it's hilarious. We get bull riding, we get yacht ride, and then they come out of a screening of Platoon, which might be the funniest joke of the whole movie.
They walk out of Platoon uproariously laughing, like cry laughing as they come out of it. And, you know, they just watched Tom Berenger blow somebody's head off and Johnny Drama bash their brains out. It's just, you know what's so good about it too, Bill, is like Platoon comes out end of 86. This movie's shooting early 88. Like, it's quick. It's quick to have a Platoon joke. And it's so, and when I watched it, when I saw the movie, I didn't know what Platoon was. I had no idea. I just still got that they just saw something really bad and they were cry laughing as they walked out. It might be my favorite gag in the movie.
And then it ends with, I can't believe we just met yesterday, she says to him, which I thought was good. That whole scene's great. Fast forward to, I only have 3 more because I didn't want to list 100.
Just the whole movie. Go ahead. What's not funny?
Enrico Palazzo singing the national anthem, but it's really Frank Drebin. Right into the baseball bloopers. So we get a bunch of bombs in the air. I like when they cut to Palazzo tied up and just screaming because his career's over.
Full ass hog tied in his boxers, and it says on the bottom of the screen, Enrico Palazzo. Da, 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 da. That's got to be, I mean, it's so good.
The blooper video, though, the infielder getting hit by the car, the tiger. We see the Queen passing food and drinks down, which is a really good gag. And then the outfielder's head coming off and Dick Enberg doing the.
How about that? I like when the Queen gets to her seats, there's like 5 guys burning cigs and drinking beers with their feet up on it. And then during the fight, the people behind the Queen are screaming, kick him in the balls. And the Queen's so uncomfortable. God, it's so good.
The baseball scene, which I love, everybody spitting, including the wives, is good. Mm-hmm. Dave Spiewak on the mound.
Go on.
One thing with Airplane, Naked Gun, they would do this with some of the names. They would be like very subtle, stupid. Like there's a guy, Pap Schmear, who's one of the bad guys. I don't know. It always gets me. The Frank not knowing whether to call the first strike.
Unbelievable.
Waiting, calling strike, and then he gets and then he's like, strike. Like, really good physical comedy from Leslie Nielsen too, right?
Incredible. The moonwalk and everything, and I'm sure that was a double, but like when he starts playing to the crowd, it's awesome. It's just
I love when they cut to the close up and he's just so excited to call strike 3. He's like, ha ha. The cheating Spiewak, the rundown, the I Love LA, like it's just. I guess we'll talk later whether this is a sports movie or not, but this is a very fun extended baseball thing. And then the last one is just Reggie Jackson.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere being the killer. We have a movie with O.J. Simpson and somehow he's not the famous athlete who turns out to be the killer at the end. It's Reggie Jackson. I must kill the Queen.
The Queen.
I must kill the Queen. And that leads to the best line of the movie.
Which is?
In a movie that brought the house down in the theater when it turns, Frank saves the day. And then Chubby from Teen Wolf goes, hey, it's Enrico Palazzo.
That's great. It's a joke on a joke. You didn't even need it. It was funny without it. But it might be the biggest laugh out loud moment in the whole movie when he says that. God, it's funny.
Brought the house down. It
and
really
you
did.
See it, when you see him, if you're really plugged in, you're like, holy shit, that's Chubby. And it's also Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And he has one line. That's all he does in the whole movie. That was great.
And then the other parts of this, the mannequin getting dragged up the stairs, that's supposed to be Priscilla Presley. I like when movies do that too. Just like the obvious mannequin. And then Ludwig gets killed by the dart. He gets hit by a car, then a steamroll, and then the marching band. A little over the top, but it was good.
Yeah, anyway, some people say you get off easy in the Dodger Stadium parking lot. That's all that happens.
That's true. What's your most rewatchable scene?
I mean, it's baseball and large. And part of the reason is like, you're just watching this movie for an hour and you're like, yeah, it's a really funny cop movie. Out of nowhere, they decide to have the final act at a baseball game for no reason. And then it's more specific, I think, the national anthem within the baseball game. And as we always talk about, Bill, 90% of having a scene like that is you use real teams. It's the Mariners and the Angels. It really helps. And it just completely legitimizes it. That whole last baseball scene is, there's not a lot more enjoyable scenes in any comedy ever.
I agree. We have the same rewatchable scene. What's aged the best? The opening credits are stupendous.
I'm into it. I love that shit. The siren going through up the roller coaster and everything. It's great.
Going through somebody's house. I like when he goes through the car wash. It's so stupid.
Well, also those guys are always a little pervy who are writing that. Of course, it goes through like the women's shower room, and we used to try to pause the VHS to see if we could see anything in there. You couldn't see much, but like that's all we needed back then. Those guys are always a little horny.
Frank's fridge with the stuff in it. The milk from 7 years ago, the Chinese food. It's just, I always think that one, for some reason, when you have stuff in the fridge from a million years ago, I just always think of Frank Drebin's fridge.
And the
what do you have for what's
freezer that's like a glacier? I have a broader one. The content has aged really well, I think, in like the PC sense. Like a lot of times we go back and watch these 80s comedies and you cringe because there's like a lot of like direct racial humor, or there's like gay characters that are just made fun of. Like just that doesn't really exist in The Naked Gun. Like there's not a lot of cheap shots that they could have made in any of those things that like would get canceled now. And I think later in the franchise, they started to do it. Like I remember there's a joke where OJ's afro is so big he can't walk through the door. Like there's none of that really going on here. I mean, the first scene with all the villains and the terrorists is kind of weird, but other than that, the jokes are just jokes that hit the palate the same way today, more or less. And you almost never see that in these comedies.
Yeah, it's like timeless comedy. You're right. I texted this to you, but Frank's first dinner date, when they're talking and he goes, almost as interesting as the photographs I saw today. And she goes, I was young, I needed the work.
Perfect.
Stole that line for like 20 years. That was like a running joke with the friends.
Perfect joke.
Just like perfect. Literally a perfect joke. By the way, I faked every orgasm was another one. I like seeing all the baseball announcers from the 80s was as a what's age the best. Seeing Mel Allen, Dick Enberg, Kurt Gowdy, a very young Jim Palmer, and on down the line. It's just kind of fun. And just that idea of kind of them seeing where the future was going with how stupid 3-man booths and 7-man sets. It was like the first time anyone made fun of it. I really appreciated it.
You've been on that for years. I was going to ask you, what was it like to see that? Because I think they got, well, then they, of course, and Dr. Joyce Brothers. I think they have 6 people. Bill, I was thinking about this. What is the most you've ever sat on? Like when you were at the desk, how many people, because I think I've been at a 6-man desk at the Super Bowl, and it's a lot. Do you remember how many was the most?
We did 5 a couple times. That was the most for me. And I just was stunned by how stupid it was. I couldn't believe it. Hey, I was just like, it's a 4-minute segment. And just for 4 minutes, 4 of the 5 people aren't talking.
Yeah.
And there's no way to have a bounce around anything. It was the dumbest thing I'd ever been a part of. So 6 is like,
it's unbelievable.
Can't
and
imagine.
When it's coming down, so that, that someone talks to you in your ear when it's about to be your turn, and normally you were going to talk for 30 seconds, they're behind now, so they'll be like, all right, Kyle, we're coming to you next. Give me your best 10 seconds on Dak Prescott. 10 seconds? Like, that's what they have to do because there's so many people. And then there's fights in the production meeting about who's going to speak first because they're going to go long. It's a whole thing. It's hard. It's hard TV.
Well, and then the person who goes first can really fuck over everybody else.
Everybody. It's like on the poker
you never
table.
know if they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, but if it's a 4-minute segment and you're going first and you go for 110 seconds.
Well, Bill, how about when you go for 110 seconds and then the host adds a follow-up to that person. They want to follow up, and then they go again. Then you're all done.
Oh my God. I could talk about this forever.
Same.
What's age the best? When he's on the building and he climbs out the window, and they have basically the Roman statues, which usually have like small penises, but naked gun.
Giant.
Everybody's fucking hung, and he's grabbing on this one giant penis. It's just a great one. I wrote down, I have a couple more. The Tony Soprano's mom you mentioned. It's just so funny to see her in this.
I know. And she's real serious, and she's light. She likes it.
Her hair was the color of gold in an old painting, and the kind of legs you'd like to suck on for a day.
And then after he says that, she runs her face first into the wall. And it's just funny. I laugh every time at that.
The driving we mentioned. I like what everybody makes up at the end too. But my favorite is all the dumb throwaway jokes that it's like you have to see the movie 20 times before you catch all of them. Like Yasser Arafat has a name tag. It says, "My name is Yasser." Gorbachev's birthmark, which was a little more obvious. What'd she say about the new guy? Just that he's an Olympic gymnast and it's the best sex she's ever had. They just move on from that. The chalk outline you mentioned. The hospital. Our Lady of the Worthless Miracle. Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed. She has a stuffed beaver. That was our favorite line as kids.
I know this little out of the way place that serves great Viking food. Frank doing that walk, and he's like, he's setting up the thing, and then he's just in the middle of nowhere. He's like, and where the hell was I? His tearaway suit, the bingo. Oh, it's the missing evidence from the Kellner case. My God, he was innocent.
Frank, you went to the chair 2 years ago.
Don't forget, I spent 2 years as a building contractor. It just keeps coming and coming, and they're all under the radar.
Even the ones that aren't big laughs, like she goes, "How about a rain check?" Well, let's just stick to dinner. That's funny to me.
Yeah. Any other what's age best, or can we move on?
Just more of the baseball. Real teams, like real players who look like real baseball players. Like the pitching looks good, the hitting looks good. Everything about the baseball works.
Great Shot Gordo Award, most cinematic shot. The fireworks going off behind Drebin. It's a good one. Famous, iconic, memorable. Would you take something else?
I got the final shot of the film. I got OJ going down the stairs and then careening over the top. Yeah. Everyone should have a friend like you, Frank. The final shot of the film. That's mine.
Kid Cudi Pursuit of Happiness Award for Best Needle Drop. It's either I'm Into Something Good by Herman's Hermits.
Who we got?
Or I Love LA by Randy Newman, which then became, the closer for the Lakers for 40 years, basically.
I knew this was going to happen. This is just, there's two songs. I tend to go, I Love LA is a really fun song. I tend to go with the Herman's Hermits. I Love LA has been so many other places, to your point. Especially when they drop the text for like a music video, the MTV style. I agree. I'm going with Herman's Hermits. Something good.
Big Kahuna Burger Award, best use of food or drink. It's the Chinese food. Wang Wu's, are they back in business? I thought they closed 3 years ago.
All right. I'm gonna disagree.
Okay.
I was gonna go for the Mountain of Red Pistachios, but for me, it's definitely George Kennedy at the ball game. Beer, creamsicle, grapes, and then an entire cake, one after another. And my take on that, what they should have done, Bill, they should have done an Easter egg, so to speak, to Cool Hand Luke, and they should have had him eat a hard-boiled egg in the middle of it, and it would have been even cooler. That was a miss by those guys.
And they should have done the extended scene where he's just eating like for 20 things just to put on YouTube.
It's the best.
The Butch's Girlfriend Award for Weak Link of the Film.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned earlier. It's O.J. Simpson in a comedy.
Yeah.
It's beyond what's aged the worst. It's like, hey, there's disgraced double murderer O.J. Simpson as Nordberg. I gotta say though, maybe I'm just a bad person, but I kind of like it. It's so weird.
Listen, we're gonna get to Juice when we talk Dion Waiters. Juice, it's very strange to watch it, but I can only say at the time it was so fun, and OJ was so cool, and he did the thing so well. I mean, there's a legendary.
Don't apologize, Kyle Brandt. Don't apologize for liking OJ and the Naked Gun.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
This is before anything happened. This is when like you were hearing the story. James Cameron always tells the story that he was going to cast OJ as the Terminator and decided to go with Arnold instead because he couldn't believe that OJ could be a ruthless killer. Nobody knew.
What's age the worst? Just from who are these guys? All the bad guy world leaders in the opening scene. Now it's like 40 years later. It's like you don't know who any of those guys are.
You don't think for the
time,
TikTokers, the Yasser Arafat joke hits big at all? That doesn't work?
Idi Amin?
You got to understand, every single night in the Tom Brokaw Evening News, he would talk about all those guys.
Yeah.
And it was an outlandish way to open the movie. And the fact that like he punches the Ayatollah and there's an orange mohawk on it, like it was really, really funny. But now, I mean, do you think they could do that now and it would be like Putin
would we have
and
six evil guys you would even recognize?
Putin.
That's it.
And then because some of the other people are kind of faceless now. It's not like Arafat or Gorbachev.
This should have been what stage the best is. I missed the days when I could recognize the quote unquote villain world leaders from other countries. Back then, it was like, oh, I know this guy, I know this guy.
And they would do them on shows like not necessarily the news. They'd always make fun of those guys, and SNL, obviously. Those guys were like household faces, not even just names. Now it's just so darker now.
What's age the worst? The safe sex joke is just
bad.
It didn't really work in 1988. Now it's like at a Mars.
So dissect that. You know, they're trying to get everyone to use condoms in the 80s. It posts AIDS and all that. And so I guess they just are like, maybe the whole body should be in a condom. I've never liked the joke that much.
Yeah, I never liked it either. And then, that once the movie became super successful, there was a lot of stuff about how they directly lifted from different movies.
Oh, really?
Spy Magazine. Stole? No, it wasn't a stealing because it was a comedy, but it was basically they just took entire sequences. And Spy Magazine in 1993 wrote about all of the things they stole from Get Smart, from the Pink Panther. It's stuff like Ludwig and Pap Schmear talking was about hypnosis, was a direct spoof of a Charles Bronson movie called Telephone in 1977. Drebin's First Meeting with Jane was like a direct parody of this Robert Mitchum movie, Farewell, My Lovely. But I think that's how they did it back then. They would just take scenes that were supposed to be serious and they just thought they were so funny how stupid they were. And then they would just basically steal them. But Austin Powers did the same thing with the Bond movies. So I'm okay with it. But some people get their panties in a bunch of
Not me. I don't give a shit. I'm glad they stole it. I don't care. These are my guys.
Any other what's age the worst for you?
Priscilla Presley's career. You talk about that for a sec. Like, you see this movie and she is unbelievably beautiful. She's really funny. She's great in the role. I would have bought a lot of stock. And it's just for context. So like, this is 88. Elvis has been dead about a decade. She does Dallas. She's doing some things like she's on TV and then she hits a franchise. She's in 2 massive movie roles. I would have thought seeing the Jane in this movie that's going to be Meg Ryan. She's so beautiful and so fun and so cool. And then it just kind of never went anywhere other than the Naked Gun movies, as far as I know.
Yeah, I'm not positive she could act. I think her lack of ability of acting didn't matter in this movie because it wasn't the point of the movie. But I'm not sure. Like her and When Harry Met Sally, I'm not sure she's pulling off like
but she seems genuinely hurt
scene.
When Frank brings out the garter belt and she's like, whose is that? And he just flings it. I like her in this movie. Maybe when you put her in a room, it's not good with the material. I don't know. God, she's pretty.
Yeah, she is. Ruffalo Hannah Rubeneck Partridge overacting award.
Tough one.
You have a candidate for this?
You know what? I tossed some to my guy Pap Schmear. when she's pointing the gun at him, he's like having this complete gyration meltdown. That's the only one I could come up with. They're all doing shtick in the whole movie. Is there another one?
Yeah, I have one, but it's stealth.
Is it Reggie Jackson?
No, when Frank is before he climbs onto the side of the building and he goes in that lady's room and she's wearing a bra and she's like,
yeah, that's true.
It's like one of the worst actors of all time. So I think we can sneak her in for this one.
That woman was hired for 3 reasons. The 2 and then the one that she was probably a really good screamer. So she really unleashed hell.
I'm not even sure she was a good screamer. Was there a better title for this movie? So they called it Naked Gun because one of the writers had done the Police Academy movies. And they thought Police Squad was too close to Police Academy, which is why they changed it to Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. I love Naked Gun. I think it's a great title. I don't even know what it means, but it's funny.
I've never understood. Is it just a dick joke, like naked and gun? I've never totally gotten it at all. I just know it as Naked Gun. I can't explain why they call it that. It's weird.
I think it's just two stupid words together, and they thought it was funny. Yeah,
it is.
All right, the Can You Dig It Award for most memorable quote. I'm going to give you 5. He's got a 50% chance of living, but there's a 10% chance of that.
My take on that, Bill, is did Anchorman rip that off with 60% of the time? It works every time. It's kind of the same kind of joke there.
They might have stolen it a split there. You could use that one for talking about like the Steelers are 8-7, but have an outside chance of winning the AFC North. And like, well, they have 50% chance. 10%.
That's good. I'm going to do that.
You take a chance waking up in the morning, crossing the street, or sticking your face into a fan.
So good.
Life isn't always fair. Just think the next time I shoot someone, I could be arrested. It's just elite. Cops and women don't mix. It's like eating a spoonful of Drano. Sure, it'll clean you out, but it'll leave you hollow inside. And then Jane, since I've met you, I've noticed things that I never knew were there before. Birds singing, dew glistening on a newly formed leaf, stoplights. What do you got for best quote?
It's impossible. It's picking the prettiest color in the Louvre. Like I actually, the one that I actually love the most, you said earlier, and it's Ed saying, you know, what do you know about the guy? Oh, not much. Olympic gymnast, best sex she's ever had. That line kills me. Sorry, that's all I heard about the guy. There's a million you could pick.
Yeah,
I don't. Not the Drano one, but you mentioned how funny it is that Frank his driving is so bad. I love how gun happy Frank is. He's always like looking to shoot people. And when she tells the story about how he shot 6 actors playing Julius Caesar, and he just killed them all because you got killed the 6 good ones. I love that he's always ready for that.
The CR thinks Luke Wilson could have been Harrison Ford hottest take award. I guess in the spirit of this award, I'm going to go with, I don't know why Leslie Nielsen wasn't a bigger star.
Talk about it.
Never appeared even in a movie that was nominated for an Oscar. Mm-hmm. Like somebody who, handsome guy, had a real charisma to him and had really good comic timing. Like, I'm not sure why he wasn't in one awesome movie. Like, could he? Where was his Fletch?
This was his Fletch. That's it. That's all he has. And he took a million swings. Bill, have you ever seen some of his really dramatic work in the 80s? Or like, it's really disturbing. He's in that
you can't
movie,
take it seriously.
Do you know that movie Nuts with Barbara Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss? If you're listening to this pod and you only know Naked Gun, YouTube Leslie Nielsen Nuts. He tries to rape Barbara Streisand and he's dropping F-bombs and it is dead serious. And I felt like God. I was so disturbed. I felt like my cool uncle. I saw him like commit a crime or something. It's really weird. So
we should have put that in What Stage is the Worst. Anytime Leslie Nielsen was in a drama, because he's in Prom Night in 1980, the Jamie Lee Curtis horror movie.
That's right.
And every time he comes in, you just feel like Naked Gun's about to happen, but it's like this serious, scary prom horror movie.
Yeah, I'm not really the same person I was before I saw that clip of him and Barbara Streisand. He's like,
that's really right. I'm definitely not YouTubing that. Do you have a hottest take, or should we move on?
I got one.
All right, let's hear it.
Naked Gun is the funniest movie of the 80s. It's the #1 funniest movie, and I'm prepared to defend it. It's because all it cares about is being funny every single second. It doesn't get sidetracked by anything. If you look at some of the other contenders, Caddyshack is amazing. It's got this whole thing where they get a little serious sometimes, and it's golf and the sex, and they get a little sidetracked from comedy. Ghostbusters is a better movie than Naked Gun, but it's sci-fi. It's all this other shit. Coming to America weighs down with romance and some of the sad stuff about coming to grips with being the prince. I think it's the funniest movie start to finish of the 80s, and I love 80s comedies. I think this is the funniest one. That's it.
Yeah, it's probably this or Caddyshack in the finals for me.
Vacation is really close too.
Caddyshack has a couple of veers off to the side. There's some golf stuff. Yeah, Vacation's in there
Gopher too. Like I hate that Gopher. Everybody hates the Gopher. And Vacation is in the conversation, but just there's a little shorter, a little tighter, and there's very hard to find a pee break, like we mentioned. I think it's the funniest movie of the 80s.
I like it. I don't even know if that's a hottest take. Might be it.
Maybe
semi-hottest take. Hey, we get to give out the Danny McBride Award for playing yourself. Our nominees: Reggie Jackson, Weird Al Yankovic, Dr. Joyce Brothers, or Jay Johnstone, or all the baseball announcers.
Definitely Reggie Jackson. And it's
Yeah,
also this incredible thing. If you went now, Bill, to someone akin to Reggie Jackson and said, we want you to be in the movie, and there's going to be you're going to get a gun from under second base and walk over to, like, you know, Kate Middleton and try to murder her, and then a big fat person is going to fall on you and almost kill you. Like, there's no way that would happen now. It's for a million reasons. The guns and the jokes, and just wouldn't go. But it was awesome when Reggie did it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Big Papi's the only one who I think might do it.
Because
like
Reggie
Johnny Damon would be like, "I'll do it," and be like, "No, you're not big enough." Johnny. Yeah, thanks anyway.
I have
Johnny.
to say, Bill, I hope this category comes up today. One of my favorite categories that goes away for months. What is it called? The Richard Kimball Unnecessarily Jacked Award.
Yeah,
to Frank Drebin. He looks great when he takes his shirt off.
That's a good one. I should have thrown that in.
Yeah,
you're right.
Old, and he's like, God, that's his body. Drebin looks great. I love that category, and it only comes up like a few times a year. I think we have to give it to Drebin for this.
I like it. Casting what ifs. They wanted Bo Derek to play Jane.
Yeah. Works.
That would have been pretty good.
It works. That definitely works.
That would have been pretty good. It's too bad she didn't do it. They wanted Vin Scully and Bob Costas to be in the baseball announcing scene, but both of them had schedule conflicts. George Kennedy actively campaigned for a role because I guess he was upset he wasn't in an airplane. So he badgered these guys. Yeah. And they worked him in. And that's all we got. Best That Guy Award. I mean, there's a lot of that, like Pap Smears of that guy. There's a bunch of them. But I mean, Chubby from Teen Wolf, who was also in Pee-wee and is also Enrico Palazzo. I think he's won this award before. I still don't know what his name is.
I got it. His name is Mark Holton. And Bill, first Rewatchables you and I ever did together was Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
And we gave it to him. We gave it to Chubby as well. So this is a multiple time winner for him. If you ever do Pee-wee's Big Adventure, he might
He'll
get
win
it too.
A third time.
Yeah, he could get like a triple crown. It's to hang 3 banners. Mark Holton. You're an Enrico Palazzo guy.
Chubby had a couple good important jump hooks in the comeback.
Oh, definitely. They had no outside game at all because the Wolf was just a slasher. So even Jay Fox was a slasher. So Chubby had some couple big shots. He goes, remember that Brad on the Dragon goes, "Shoot it, fat boy." He just shoots it and thrills it in his face.
He had a PJ Washington against Minnesota kind of heat check.
He did.
Started making corner threes. Deion Waiters Award. Reggie Jackson, we mentioned. Ted Olson, the gadget guy. Big Al. Or I'm blanking. Pap Smear, I guess, would be the other one.
Listen, I have the juice written down. 4 scenes, not a lot of lines. OJ, heroin, Frank, heroin. It's a great scene. I don't think OJ's in it too much. I think he gets the waiters to add to his Heisman Trophy, which was taken from him.
I completely agree. I'm glad you broke the seal.
Fuck it, I'm in. Like I liked him in this movie. I don't regret it. You talked me off the ledge. I'm sorry.
OJ Simpson, 2-time murderer, Heisman Trophy winner, first guy to rush for 2,000 yards, and now Deion Waiters Award.
Deion Waiters Award.
Yeah,
he can keep that one wherever
first
he is.
Sentence for him. Recasting couch, director, or city. Can we just talk out Priscilla Presley for a second?
Yeah, I like her a lot in this movie, but you already had me at Bo Derek. What's on your mind?
Linda Carter.
Great.
Do you go somebody from 70s, like iconic TV 70s? Do you go Jacqueline Smith? Somebody who's a little older now, but is still like
one of the
tied
angels
into this, like, one of the Charlie's Angels, Wonder Woman. Do you go that route?
I'm going to hit you where it counts. I know what you like. I'm going to go a little different breed of actress. How about Marky Post?
Oh, wow.
Come on. I know you're in the fan club.
Is she too young for Frank?
Yeah, probably. Frank's in his 60s, but this is probably, Night Court's probably on the air at this point, right?
Yeah.
She might be a little young.
Marky Post could be a great one.
Yeah, probably one of the Angels better.
The only other one I had was Raquel Welch, because this was right during the Raquel Welch Renaissance when she would come on Letterman and flirt with them. And
well, she shows up in 33 1/3. She's on stage with Drebin at the Oscars, and she's got all this physical humor and everything. By the way, Raquel Welch, my number one all-time in history, the number one GOAT for me, Raquel Welch. Unbelievable. Lovely Raquel.
I'm fine with Priscilla Presley, though. I just wanted to talk it out.
She's great.
I wouldn't change the casting in this movie. Tony Romo or Chris Collinsworth for the director's commentary. I think I want Collinsworth. Oh, Mike, there's nothing to see here. There's just some fireworks. He's just telling people to disperse.
I think if you went down, and Dr. Joyce Brothers and Tony Romo. Oh, he's gonna go to second base, Jim. He's gonna kill the Queen, Jim. Oh, the umpire's patting him all down, Jim. Oh, here we go. I think it's Romo in the booth with all those others. I really do.
That's a great call. I didn't think of them actually in the booth
with the blue jacket.
Actually, I think both of them went for this.
That's the answer.
I think they're
you
both
have to put both of them in, of course.
Without Michaels.
Yes, everybody.
Yeah,
and Mike Tirico, everybody.
Yeah. What's Reggie Jackson doing, Jim? I don't understand this. He's going to the stands. He's going to turn the Queen.
Oh, he's going to the cufflink darts, Jim. Oh, look, she's going. She's going to land him. Oh, here we go. And they won the Super Bowl. That's great.
Who would you, of all the shows you did on Good Morning Football, was there ever I would shoot a cufflink dart at somebody on the set moment for you, or no? You have to tell me later.
No, I mean, shit, yeah, we had like D'Angelo Williams almost came off the table at me years ago because he didn't like that Peter and I didn't play the game and didn't respect us. So I would have probably needed the cufflink darts then. Remember that? Yeah.
Then he would have been
mad at us.
Why? Half-assed internet research.
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth, the real one, did attend an Oakland A's versus Baltimore Orioles game years later in Baltimore. And Reggie Jackson was an Oakland A's coach and met her in the dugout. 3 1988 comedies featured a villain getting run over by a steamroller. Can you name the other 2?
Okay, I think, all right. Well, one I think we already named, which is A Fish Called Wanda.
Yep.
And I got it. Was Who Framed Roger Rabbit 88?
Yeah. Roger Rabbit. Great job. Great job.
Yo.
Drebin's dancing as an umpire was performed by somebody named Johnny Disco, who is a dancer.
That's the guy's name?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, he gets Dion Waiters. Sorry, Juice. You lose it again. The Johnny Disco gets the Dion Waiters. Amazing.
Ludwig meeting with Drebin when he's feeding his fighting fish small minnows.
That's a great scene.
Identical to A Game of Death Bruce Lee scene when the main villain is feeding his fish. So they rip that off.
Bruce Lee stabs the fish with a pen?
I don't think that part happened. No. And then David Zucker said they really wanted the Brewers.
Uh-huh.
But the league was like, you got to take the Mariners because they're trying to get some Mariners buzz going. And the Dodgers did not want any part of this movie because there was a baseball fight and there was a gun and coming out of second base.
Yeah.
But they said, we'll give you our stadium, which leads to the weirdness, if you're actually from here, of this is an Angels Mariners game being played in Dodger Stadium, which I never noticed until I actually moved here and started going to Dodger games. If you don't know any better, it's a baseball stadium. You think it's Angels Stadium. It's not.
It gets even weirder for the real baseball heads out there. The first establishing shot inside the stadium is of Wrigley Field. And it's blatantly Wrigley Field. Watch the scene again. There's the cop outside and they're walking around. And then once they go in the park,
Angel Stadium. When the outside shot of the stadium is Angel Stadium.
And then they go into Wrigley, which I have no idea why. And then the rest of it seems to be Dodger Stadium. So they're all over the map, but it's Naked Guns. Who cares?
Yeah. Apex Mountain.
Okay.
Leslie Nielsen, I'm going to say yes.
So I know we're kind of shitting on the sequels. The second one was a bigger hit with bigger money, and like he then had a franchise. And I really think it's the second one that got him all those shitty movies you never saw later. I think it's a couple of years later.
I like it. Arbor Day.
I really should get my rest. Tomorrow being Arbor Day, and I'll see. We can't even remember all the lines. That's like the 80th line in the movie I would have thought of.
It's the last time anyone's ever mentioned Arbor Day, so I'm going Apex Mountain. O.J. Simpson, probably not.
No.
How about umpiring?
All right, so the shittiest part was I can't believe we haven't brought this up yet. How about in The Fan, De Niro behind the plate doing a Frank Drebin with the mask?
One of the worst scenes of all time.
So stupid.
I felt like I cared about umpires more in the late 80s. So having an umpire be part of a baseball movie, I don't know. I feel like it might have been the apex. I knew the umpires' names.
Well, it's cool. Joe West, the real umpire, is in this. And he's one of the guys that Drebin throws out, and everybody knows Joe West.
George Kennedy, I'm going to say no. Reggie Jackson, no. Reggie Jackson hit 3 homers in a game-deciding World Series, Legend. The fans all poured on the
But I bet he gets asked about this a lot. You know what's funny is like when Queen Elizabeth finally died 2 years ago, all anybody was tweeting was Reggie Jackson jokes. Like just everything of person. Reggie Jackson. That's like a 35-year-old movie.
Montalbán, no. The California Angels, it's either Naked Gun or it's almost beating the Red Sox in '86 and then blowing it. So it's probably for the Angels fans, probably Naked Gun.
Not the Anaheim Angels, like the California Angels.
California, when they were called the California Angels.
I know.
Priscilla Presley?
Yeah. I mean, she married
maybe as an actress, yes.
Yeah. I think it is.
Bad Guy Toupees?
I just want more info about his toupee in Fantasy Island from you. I know you left some fuel in the tank on that one. I think it has to be. You were fired up about that.
I love nothing more than bad toupees. It's probably my number one thing that I enjoy. My favorite one ever was Steve Sanders' dad in 90210.
Right.
And it might not have even been a toupee, but it's just a work of art. It's just beautiful. It's this big gray helmet on his head. But I like when it looks like a helmet.
Do you see them like in public? Like if you're at a restaurant, we've noticed someone with a toupee and like that
I gotta say, it's one of my skills. It really is. I've said this before, but toupees, breast implants, dentures, I can spot any sort of chicanery. I can spot.
Like if someone has a glass eye, you're like, that's bullshit on that glass eye.
Sammy Davis, I knew immediately. I knew what was going on with him. Last one for Apex Mountain. National anthems.
Okay.
I'm going to give you my Mount Rushmore for national anthems and tell me if you disagree.
I love this.
The best national anthem of all time was Marvin Gaye at the 1983 NBA All-Star Game. It's unassailable. It's like arguing about Michael Jordan as the GOAT. Like it just can't be argued. Whitney Houston at the Super Bowl, although there were rumors she might have
that's the one that people point to a lot. That would be the LeBron and the Michael Jordan conversation or the Kobe, because that was Desert Storm.
Desert Storm, great one. Those two have to be mentioned.
Yeah.
That 4th spot,
you got Fergie
after Enrico Palazzo. That some people would throw Jimi Hendrix, Woodstock in there.
Sure.
Creativity, kind of a moment. I Googled everybody's top 30 national anthems. Like, there's nothing like really was like, oh, that's definitely it. Because I was trying to work backwards. Like, there's no way you could cut this out. But I would argue Enrico Palazzo is in the top 4. I really think it is. It's one of the funniest scenes of the movie. It's an iconic 80s comedy. There's never been a scene like that. It's kind of pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, some people are like, you're not allowed to, that's our country. Don't do that. So, but it's done tastefully. I just think it's a great scene.
I'm with you completely. And I do think what you're saying is, I don't think you do a scene now in a comedy where somebody massacres the national anthem. I think what's really interesting is that 2 years later after this movie, Roseanne Barr does it in San Diego and pretty much ruins her career for a long time. It's a great huge story in the news. And then we got to shout out our guy, Carl Lewis, probably the most infamous one of all time and the worst one of all time.
But there's only snippets of video from that. Nobody has the entire. That was the funniest though. You're right. Carl Lewis might be him versus Jimi Hendrix for that 4th spot. Mostly
the clip that you see, it's from SportsCenter and it's Charlie Steiner trying to get through the broadcast of just saying it. And he says Francis Scott off key. At one point, Carl Lewis stops.
One of the best jokes.
Uh-oh. I'll make up for it now. It's unbelievable. Yeah, Steiner nailed that broadcast. It was so good. That's really, really a fun list. I have a little list myself for Apex Mountain, and I'm right with you. So takeaway national anthem, just funny singing in movies. Like scenes where a character sings and it's fucking hilarious. I've got Frank Drebin, the national anthem, okay?
Yeah.
Will Ferrell, old school, he does Dust in the Wind. It's great. In Step Brothers, he does Something to Talk About.
Yeah.
Ladies' Night, John Lovitz in The Wedding Singer is a fantastic performance. Cameron Diaz in My Best Friend's Wedding, but our guy, Bill, he will rock you. And he will feel you. I got Dirk.
Come on.
Feel. Maybe we do that twice at the end. Feel. I think that's it for me. And that's not even. There's the other scene where he sings the second song when Chest is in the production booth singing for him. I think it's our guy Dirk. Even funnier than Leslie.
It's pretty good. It's probably Dirk and Will Ferrell in the finals because Will Ferrell has a bunch of them.
I know. It's funny when he sings.
Like what you said, Old School. What were the movies you had for him?
Old School, he does Dust in the Wind, like at the funeral when Blue dies. And then in Step Brothers, he sings Something to Talk About.
But you left out Anchorman too, though.
What does he sing in Anchorman?
They sing that
Afternoon Delight.
Afternoon Delight.
Ooh, yeah. Right. He
does Porti Volare also in Step Brothers at the end at the
right. Oh yeah.
And don't they sing in Anchorman too, which is now becoming like legitimately underrated and is a stealth rewatchables candidate? I think they have a singing thing in that too. Yeah, it's I think it's exactly what they wanted to happen has now happened.
Oh, okay.
Where they kind of made it so that 12 years from now, people will be like, it's fucking good, Anchorman 2. I think that was their entire intention of the movie. Cruise or Hanks?
This category is so fun. I've been listening to the episodes. Listen, I don't think we can have Cruise as Frank Drebin. I think what's interesting is that Hanks did it a year later. He was in Dragnet, and he was kind of the wild role, and Aykroyd was more of the straight man. Yeah. But I just think that Hanks is so much better than Cruise comedically. I really do think he's head and shoulders above with comedy. I got to go Hanks.
Yeah. I don't think there's any question Hanks.
We can't have Cruise as Drebin.
Racehorse, rock band, wrestler, fantasy team name. I couldn't come up with one for this. Do you have one?
I got it. My fantasy team name is Our Lady of the Worthless Miracle. I love that joke.
That's great. What was the fireworks thing called? I guess the Fenwick fireworks.
Oh yeah, I don't know what the name of the store
like
is.
That one could work. All right, this is going to be dumb, but we're going to pick some nits.
Okay.
Would there really be this much security for the Queen's visit? Let's start there.
So true. Why do they care about that much? It's the Queen. We don't need to bring in the army. You're right. There's a lot of that.
Who cares? People in America don't care about the royal family. You know who found that out? Harry and Meghan.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
In the 80s, they really cared a lot about like Princess Diana and all that. So I think this is maybe an extension of that.
Okay. What do you have for picking nits? Because I have a few more.
I got some baseball stuff. I hate to do it. Okay. The leadoff hitter comes up. He doesn't swing on 3 straight strikes right down the middle. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry to do it to Naked Gun. You're swinging at one of those. You're the leadoff hitter.
It was a very early OBP. They hadn't really figured out.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put the bat on it with an 0-2 count. Reggie Jackson wears a watch during a baseball game. Was that a thing that was done in the 80s? Like, I'm trying to, who is he? Reggie Roby? I don't remember if baseball players in the 80s were wearing watches. Do you? I don't think they were.
It jumped out. It's a good one.
The giant boobs on the side of the highway, which is an amazing sight gag. I'm going to get really deep into it. It's actually south of Orange County on the 5 freeway south. It's not anywhere close to Los Angeles. They never would have seen them on the way back from the airport. But I love that joke. Everything I see makes me think of her. What do you got?
I just don't know why there would be toxic waste in a meatpacking factory.
It's interesting you say that, Bill. I've picked up something that I didn't get this joke my whole childhood. So that guy goes in the toxic waste and he dies, right? And his hand's coming out.
Yeah, and the ring shows up later. Yeah, the callback.
I didn't know that as a kid. That's a funny joke.
I think Frank loses his job after he kills 5 actors in a street performance of Julius Caesar. Good actors. I think that's it. I think they take the badge. I think this becomes one of the big LA police scandals of the 80s. 5 Julius Caesar actors have been murdered. That's it for Frank.
He shot all of them and killed them all. They're all dead. And it's just, listen, he thought they were stabbing someone. I shoot the bastards. That's my policy.
And then Angel Stadium morphing into Dodger Stadium. I just got to flag it.
Why are the Mariners fighting the Angels? That doesn't make sense. So Frank tackles Reggie Jackson. So the Angels want to kick the shit out of Frank. What do the Mariners have to do with it? Why are they fighting the Angels? They have no part in this fight at all.
It's a great question. I don't have an answer. I think they just wanted a baseball fight.
Yeah.
Sequel, prequel, prestige TV, all Blackcast or Untouchable. I would go with Untouchable. Is this movie better with Wayne Jenkins, Danny Trejo, Sam Jackson, JT Walsh, Byron Mayo, Harling Mays, Eva Laughing, Ramon Raymond, or Philip Baker Hall? You could have worked Sam Jackson into this movie pretty nicely.
Where you got him? Where you
How about his pap smear?
Pap smear comes in. All right, he comes in.
He spruces up pap smear. I also think, could he have been the George Kennedy part?
Yeah. He takes that dart to the neck. He just goes, Ted, why, motherfucker?
Could he have been the guy at Pier 32 that Frank negotiates with? I don't know. Yeah. It feels like Sam could have been in here.
Sam would have been good. I like getting Sam in.
Who do you have for just one Oscar? Who gets it?
The writers, I guess.
Yeah, I had the writers too.
It's so dense. So many jokes. I'll give the writers.
I had two unanswerables, and I inadvertently did both of them. Did this movie predict a future of too many announcers and pregame hosts, and then the Mount Rushmore for national anthems? Did you have any?
What happens to the Mariners-Angels game?
Oh, great one.
Let's get into that. So obviously they stopped the game. Like one of the players had a gun. He tried to kill the queen. Like the game is not ending. It's the middle of the seventh. The home team is up. Did they just win? But then bigger than that, Bill, is that they will find out afterwards that the whole game was umpired by a policeman. So the whole game is invalid, and I think they just have to wipe it from the record. I don't know if they make it up, but it's not a real game. It can't go in the standing. It's complete farce.
Also, Nordberg's dead because Nordberg just careened off the
Nordberg's going to die.
You have a dead cop on the bottom. So I'm thinking
it's tough.
1981 was the George Brett Pine Tar game.
Yeah.
And they ended up going back and redoing it. Maybe they redo this like a couple months later, but I think it's a huge SportsCenter topic. Like definitely their leading SportsCenter that night. Especially what do we do about this Angels-Mariners game? This is crazy. The Queen, an attempted assassination. We have a dead LA cop, a dead villain who got steamrolled and run over by a marching band. I think they're stopping the game at that point.
And it's funny because they think that it's actually an opera singer who was umping the game. They think it's Enrico Palazzo. Come to find out, it was actually a police officer. So they stopped the game. I mean, they stopped the game before the Giants-A's Earthquake World Series game. That stopped.
Right.
A couple of years ago, they stopped the DeMar Hamlin game and never made it up, but that was football. So I think they just wipe it completely out.
I'm glad you brought up Enrico Palazzo because that's probably an answerable too. What are his next 5 years look like?
Well,
does he do like Donahue and Jerry Springer? Does he just kind of move into that world where he's just dining on daytime talk shows? Because that was the era.
There'd be no internet with which to clarify. Because if there was internet, he'd go on his phone. I am Enrico Palazzo.
Yeah.
That's not he. So people think that he's the guy.
He probably sues Los Angeles police, right?
And the Angels, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, for like hurting his career.
Destroyed his career.
He probably wins that lawsuit. They probably have to pay him off. Best double feature choice. You could go Airplane or you could go Naked Gun 2.5. I'd probably go Naked Gun 2.5 because when I finished this, I was like, you know what? I would also watch Naked Gun 2.5 right now.
You were saying the same thing about the Bad News Bears, like Breaking Training, like when the Netflix thing and Emerson thinks there's the next movie. I'm going to zag though. My double feature choice is Platoon. I want to do the full contrast. This is what I do, Bill. This is what you do. You watch The Naked Gun.
Yeah.
And then you stop it right at the music video. You watch all of Platoon, and then you resume The Naked Gun with them walking out of theaters. That's what I'm doing.
That's a great one. Indian Red Zawadney Award, what happened the next day? How long do Frank and Jane last? I guess we know from the sequels.
Yeah, I mean, they last. They're going to get married, and they're in the sequels and everything. I have an Indian Red Zawadney Award. What happens next day? I think Reggie Jackson's in jail, right? Like he's definitely handcuffed and then put in prison because his excuse is like that he was hypnotized via his watch or something.
Yeah,
I think he's in big trouble. If
Robert
only there was some
Kardashian becomes
attorneys.
His lawyer.
Yeah. They need Johnny Cochran like immediately. They need all those guys, and Cochran will get him off, and he'll say like, if he's hypnotized, you must sympathize, and like he'll get him out of jail immediately. He'd be fine.
I almost put this in picking nits, but it's so stupid that you can't. But
I like it already.
The signal getting sent out to like must kill the Queen, must kill Nordberg, but then when somebody steps on Ludwig's whatever watch and it sends a signal to Priscilla Presley, must kill Frank Drebin. Just how did those signals work? Was there
dumb? And he was run over by a steamroller already. I don't think it's functioning. Come on, guys.
How many did they have to when they were making the whatever to the program to send the orders out? Could you put any name in there? Did they start out with 5 names? Did he have to call the person like, hey, can you put in Frank Drebin as a signal? Did they have to add people? Did it start out with the Queen?
He has someone writing code on like a Commodore 64 computer back then. Yeah, it's tough. And they have to get it in their watch too.
Yeah. It's more than a nitpick. Which piece of memorabilia would you want from this movie other than the cufflinks?
Well,
to shoot. Who'd you want to get? D'Angelo Williams?
D'Angelo Williams. Just to protect myself. I would think it'd be really fun to have those, like if you're in your 20s at a wedding and you're wearing your stupid rented tuxedo, but you had the cufflink darts and you could just blast one of your friends and knock them out for 3 minutes. Hey, Keith. Boom. And Keith's on the floor for 3 minutes. I want the cufflink shooter.
That's great. I would want Reggie's Angels jersey. Game worn.
It's awesome.
Coach Finstock wore best life lesson. You take a chance getting up in the morning, across the street, or sticking your face in a fan. Keep that one. Keep that one. And then who won the movie? You could go with the writers. You go with Leslie Nielsen.
I mean, listen, Leslie Nielsen was working. No, Leslie Nielsen was working for 40 years. He's showing up in The Love Boat, and now he's a major movie star on the sides of buses in New York City. It's Leslie Nielsen, and he got 2 sequels out of it. God bless him. And then some terrible spoof movies. I got to go Leslie. I love that man. I love him.
I agree. All right. The moment is here.
I'm a little nervous.
Craig Horrellback.
Come on, Craig.
Born like 8 years after this movie came out.
6.
No idea where this is going. Tell us, Craig, what'd you think?
So I on my end, while you guys were recording, I obviously have my mic on and I'm recording myself the entire time in case I chime in. And I usually mute myself for most of it if I'm coughing or whatever. If I didn't mute myself for this entire conversation, you would just hear me laughing for like the last 80 minutes.
Oh,
good.
This movie is right up my alley. I love Naked Gun. I actually saw it for the first time like a month ago. I was on vacation. I was on a plane. I had never seen it. And I was like, I got to watch Naked Gun. Absolutely loved it. Watched it again last night. Loved it again. I grew up, my dad showed me Airplane when I was a kid and I loved Airplane. And I don't know why I never transitioned to watch Naked Gun. I don't know what this humor is. I don't know if it's called like dad humor with these kind of cheesy jokes.
Yeah.
It's so watchable. The exaggerated physical comedy is like right up my alley. I fucking love these movies. Him peeing with the hot mic and his hands are on the wall and he's shaking back and forth. He's like dancing. Oh God. I actually think, I was trying to think about whether or not I'm unique for somebody my age or if this would actually just work for a lot of people my age. And this movie, the joke density is so high. I mean, there's like 10 jokes a minute for an hour and 20 minutes. And I'm like, maybe this has actually come back around and this is perfect for young people. It's practically a TikTok as a movie. I mean, it's just silly, quick, physical comedy bits. It's real. I mean, a lot of like TikTok humor, social media humor is kind of stupid stuff like this. But I know this is obviously very smart. But I actually think this might play well now for somebody who's 25 years old. I mean, you barely have time to look down at your phone. This movie moves so quickly and it's so funny. So I don't know. Maybe if you force people to watch this, I think they might actually
welling
like
up.
it.
Like this is fucking emotional. Jesus.
This is a beautiful moment.
Didn't realize this was going to be such a great moment.
I love you.
I love it.
As he's talking, it makes me think like, you asked why they don't make movies like why this doesn't exist anymore. But I guess Austin Powers was like the 2.0 version of this, right? But then when you think about Anchorman and some of the stuff from those movies and Step Brothers, that's like the 3.0 version. Because a lot of the stuff we love about those movies are the little dumb moments like that, right?
Well, I think Austin Powers is like and Scary Movie, I think there were some good scary movies for a bit and then it got bad. And then it got into like epic movie and date movie and Meet the Spartans. I don't know if you remember all those. Yeah. But I think it transitioned into improv comedy. Anchorman was like half Naked Gun a little bit and then it was half improv. And then once you got into the Apatow era, it was just like these longer improv scenes. This movie is so written and so tight. And I think that got lost in the early to mid aughts, and they became a little bit longer, and it was a lot more like character improvisation.
Yeah, that's a good point because in the research they said that the script was like airtight, don't fuck around, deliver the lines exactly like it's a real movie.
And I think that's why the physical comedy is a huge part of it because the physical comedy that stuff is so tight and written, right? It's like stage acting. It's like he needs to back up. OJ needs to hit his head here, and then the paint here. Yeah. That the script I think has to be so much tighter for a movie like this.
And when you read about it. the stuff that they didn't include, there's a lot of extra scenes that would show up on USA sometimes. And they did this whole musical montage. Like there's something about Mary style during the credits that they're like, no, cut it. End with the OJ joke. And when you read about the stuff that they cut out, like it sounds funny. When Frank is on that long walk where it ends with like, where the hell was I? He walks through like a men's shower room at one point. When he's in Ludwig's office, there's a bearskin rug. I'm like, that stuff sounds good. And they still were like, who cares? Get it out, get it in 80 minutes. I think, Craig, your point is perfect. It's an attention span thing. I feel like young people, the movies they don't like these days, too slow, give me the action. This is nonstop dopamine for 80 minutes. Like it's constantly throwing you kelp and it works.
Yeah, I
wow, guys.
They make me laugh so much.
Good.
This is the rewatchables highlight of the year. Craig like a Naked Gun.
You know, I wanted to ask you guys this. I thought about this while you were talking. Is Leslie Nielsen the oldest person to be the lead in a comedy and be beloved by young people like in the moment? 62 years old leading a comedy. When does that happen?
Well, they make those ridiculous movies like with old people, like Bucket List, and when it's like Morgan Freeman and like Space Cowboys and stuff. Like those are deliberately doing senior citizens. That's not what this is doing. That's a good point.
Yeah, he's playing probably a little younger than he is, right?
Yeah.
He's playing like he's like early 50s, but he's actually older than that.
I said, Craig, I said I was nervous because I just thought you'd be like, cringe. I don't get it. It's dumb. Like, I thought it was going to be cringe. I don't want to insult you, but like I see a lot of people just constantly say that online about things they don't get. And I'm so proud. I'm thrilled.
I don't know. There's a fine line between something that seems cheesy and unfunny and cheesy and funny. And for some reason, all of this humor to me really works. I'd be really curious to see what other people in their 20s and 30s think about this. But I actually texted a group of my friends during this recording and they all love Naked Gun and Airplane. So I don't know.
Oh, good. Well, it has aged well from a cable just being shown all the time standpoint. So there you go. All right. This podcast was produced by Craig Horlbeck. Kyle Brandt, I don't know what our next movie is, but it's going to be something this summer because guys, by the way, we're taping this on a Monday with the same day it's coming up, but yesterday was officially 10 Sundays until football.
Here we go. Let's go. I'm ready.
I'm hitting the point where, and you guys know how much I love basketball, but I actually think I might like the football season more at this point in my life.
The news cycle's way better, more interesting.
I'm just so ready for all of it. I'm so ready. I'm cutting way back on the podcast this month because July usually, and part of it is because I just want to throw myself into the football prep. And I'm so excited. Like, who's excited to do homework ever at any point in your life? Never. And I'm like, I can't wait to fucking dive into everything and really figure out some hardcore football opinions for the season. It's the fucking best.
Well, Bill, you've been working really hard, like on the NBA draft and all that. I feel like you maybe need like a new flavor, like that football flavor is going to hit perfectly in the fall. I'm telling you.
Yeah, because I was telling my wife, I was like, I'm cutting back on the pods. I'm finally going to have some time to breathe here. And she's like, you're just going to be reading up on football for like 7 straight weeks. I'm like, yeah, well, that's true. But it's not going to be, it's not homework. You just start
pleasure.
Stammering.
Well, we got a list and I'm going to be in LA a lot this fall. So we got to get together for the first time and do one of these in the same room.
Oh yeah. We're doing a bunch of those. All right. Kyle Brandt, thank you. Craig Horlbeck, thank you. We'll see you next week on the Rewatchables.